You can't go to a sporting event today without seeing a team mascot. The modern-day mascots can trace their roots back to Mr. Met in the early 1960s. He's a friendly character meant to entertain the fans and especially the kids. But long before Mr. Met in the early 1900s, in what we now call the deadball era, there were human mascots. These deadball mascots were real human beings, not selected for their ability to dance or entertain. They were there because there was an honest belief that they were lucky. What I'm about to tell you may make you cringe, because many people of the time held the ignorant belief that the more socially outcast one was, the greater his worth as a good luck charm. This included just about every form of disability. They were hunchback children, dwarves, mentally challenged adults, and what were called street urchins, basically poor, homeless children. This is the story of Charles Victory Faust, Louis Van Zelst, Huey McLoon, Eddie Bennett, and Ulysses Harrington, also known as Lil Rastus. Now, it's well known that baseball players have always been superstitious. There are great stories throughout the game's history. Some guys eat chicken for luck. Sometimes it can be a rally squirrel, a rally monkey, a lucky hat, not touching the foul line, a batting glove routine. In 1911, there was a good luck charm in the form of a human mascot that the Giants believed helped them win the pennant. Charles Victory Faust is unique among the subjects I mentioned in that he actually got to play in a game, even though he was not under any contract nor officially part of the team roster. Things were a little bit more lax 100 years ago. Charles Victory Faust was a Kansas farm boy, mentally challenged by all accounts, and I'm not trying to disparage him, but his low intelligence and his gullibility is important to his story. You see, in 1911, Faust saw a fortune teller at the county fair, and the fortune teller convinced him that if he pitched for the New York Giants, that they would win the pennant. Faust became obsessed and believed it to be his destiny. When the Giants came to St. Louis, Faust bought a ticket, walked down to the field, and was able to share his story with John McGraw. McGraw was extremely superstitious, and it isn't clear to me if what followed was McGraw buying into his story and not wanting to jinx the Giants, or if he was having fun with Charles Victory Faust. In any case, McGraw invited Faust to show him what he could do. He handed him a mitt and a ball, and Faust threw a handful of poor pitches. It's said that he had a huge, slow windmill windup, but that his fastball looked just like his curve, painfully slow and soft. The Giants then asked Faust to do some hitting during pregame BP. He grabbed a bat and took some embarrassing swings at the plate. Eventually, hitting a dribbling grounder, the fielders made a joke of it and watched Faust round the bases, sliding at each bag. Faust, unaware that he was the butt of the joke, proudly went back to the stands to watch the game. The Giants won that afternoon in a 9-0 rout. Faust returned the next day, and the Giants won again. When the series was over, the team left without Faust. The rest of the road trip did not go well. When the Giants returned home, Faust was waiting for them at the Polo Grounds. The Giants promptly swept both games of a doubleheader, and that sealed the deal. The Giants players bought in. Faust was given a uniform and took part in pregame warm-ups. During the games, he would be in the bullpen warming up just in case John McGraw needed him. He would do this every game. From the time he met McGraw in St. Louis to the day the Giants actually clinched the pennant, the team had a record of 39-9, an 81% win rate. And when Faust was actually in uniform, their record was an incredible 36-2. At one point, Faust missed a few games while he was cashing in on his fame in New York in a vaudeville show. The Giants dropped 3 in a row, and Faust abandoned his show to join the team on a 22-game road trip. The Giants ran off a 10-game win streak and went 18-4 on that brutally long stretch of away games. This is about the time that I started finding newspaper articles of Chicago fans discussing kidnapping Faust to keep him away from the ballpark when the Giants faced the Cubs. The Giants players started treating their good luck charm like the important asset he was. They would never leave him alone for fear that something would happen to him. Whether you believe in luck or not, Faust and the New York Giants did win the pennant, and once first place was clinched, McGraw finally conceded and put Faust in to pitch. On October 7, 1911, the Giants' Rube Marquard started the game against the last-place Boston Rustlers, now the Atlanta Braves. Faust got the call in the ninth and faced 5 batters, amazingly giving up only 1 run on 1 hit. He would get his final inning 5 days later in the second game of a doubleheader against the Brooklyn Dodgers. 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, 0 runs. Unfortunately, the fortune teller's words were that Faust would help the Giants win the pennant, not the World Series, and that's exactly what happened. The Giants won the pennant, but lost the World Series to Connie Mack's Philadelphia Athletics, who, as it turns out, had a good luck charm of their own. Louis Van Zelst. A dwarf teenager with a badly misshapen body, he was considered a good luck charm by Connie Mack. Van Zelst had an accident as a young boy that resulted in a twisted spine and grew into a hump. He was extremely tiny, and he's shown here in the 1912 team photo with the label mascot. Connie Mack discovered Louis in 1909 while he was performing the same magical duties for the University of Pennsylvania's athletic teams. Connie Mack and the A's were the city's biggest franchise, and they were able to lure him away. Prior to each game, players would walk over to Van Zelst and rub his humped back for good luck. However degrading his role, and however ridiculous the superstition, Van Zelst was a success. He was part of 4 pennant-winning A's teams, a run of good fortune that unfortunately exacerbated this trend of using these kids as the equivalent of a rabbit's foot. After he died in 1915 from Bright's disease at age 20, the A's began a streak of 7 straight last-place finishes. Thinking that possibly another hunchback mascot might help, the A's hired 13-year-old Huey McLoone. McLoone, according to Connie Mack's biographer, wasn't as likable as Van Zelst, and the 1916 A's weren't nearly as good as their predecessors. He soon lost his job and drifted. He would become a police informer, and in 1928, local gangsters shot and killed him. Across town, the Phillies employed at least 2 hunchbacks in this era, one of whom was named Eddie Naughton. He would be the Batman on the 1915 Phils team that won the franchise's first pennant. But perhaps baseball's most famous hunchback mascot was Eddie Bennett. Orphaned by the 1918 flu pandemic, the Brooklyn teenager talked the White Sox into giving him a job. He was so highly regarded as a good luck charm that the Dodgers lured him away from Chicago. Not long afterward, the Murderers Row Yankees stole him. For all the credit and publicity he received during his many years in New York, Bennett died an alcoholic, and not a single Yankees player attended his funeral. And lastly, the Detroit Tigers had their own good luck charm and a boy they called Little Rastus, Ulysses Simon Harrington. The accounts I found on Harrington were contradictory. I read that he was either initially picked up by Ty Cobb or by Germany Schaefer. Either is believable to me, but I lean more towards Germany Schaefer. If you read his Sabre bio, you'll see why. This is the guy who stole first base, leading to a rule change. He was an oddball. In any event, Harrington was a homeless African-American boy picked up in Chicago during a road trip. The Tigers believed he had magic juju and snuck him along on road trips, stuffing him in ventilated steamer trunks and sneaking him into white-only hotels. He helped them win the pennant in 1908, and then the Tigers let him go. He was immediately picked up by the Cubs, who then faced Detroit in the World Series that year and beat them 4-1. Was it Little Rastus magic or just coincidence? In closing, I just want to say this. Let's be careful about judging the men from 100 years ago. There were good men who did weird things. But I love history, and it's important when you study history to not hide the parts of it that make you uncomfortable. You can learn from it. For example, ask yourself this: what are we doing today in society that will look equally as cringy 100 years from now? I'm sure there's something. Ponder that and drop me a comment if you can think of something. Take care.